There's a psalm that's been hidden in plain sight for 3,000 years. A psalm so powerful that when you read it for just 3 days, not 3 months, not 3 weeks, just 3 days, something breaks in the spiritual realm. The chains of debt loosen, the burden lifts, and blessing returns. I'm Rabbi Avraham. I'm 83 years old, and I'm about to show you which psalm it is, why 3 days matters, and exactly how to read it so that it works. But I need to warn you, this only works if you follow the instructions precisely. Miss one element and you'll read the words without experiencing the power. Before I reveal this, I need you to engage. Like this video if you're ready for debt to end and comment these 3 words. I am free. When you write that, you're making a declaration in the spiritual realm, and subscribe to this channel because what I'm revealing here has broken financial bondage for countless people over millennia. Turn on notifications. Let me start by telling you something most people don't understand about debt. Debt isn't just a financial problem, it's spiritual bondage. The book of Proverbs says it clearly. The borrower is slave to the lender, not servant, not employee, slave. That's the spiritual reality of debt. It creates a master-slave relationship. The creditor has power over you. They can call, they can demand, they can threaten, they can control your decisions, and you're bound to respond. Debt creates constant anxiety. You wake up thinking about it. You go to sleep worrying about it. It affects your peace, your decisions, your relationships, your faith. It colors everything. You can't fully rest. You can't fully give. You can't fully pursue purpose because there's always this weight, this obligation, this bondage. And debt creates shame. You feel like you've failed, like you're irresponsible, like you're less than others who don't have debt. That shame keeps you isolated, keeps you from asking for help, keeps you trapped in the cycle. But here's what I want you to understand. Financial freedom isn't just about having money in the bank. It's about liberation. It's about breaking the chains that keep you bound. It's about being free to walk in purpose without creditors controlling your life. And there's a psalm that breaks this bondage. When read correctly for 3 specific days with the right heart attitude, it shatters the spiritual chains of debt. The psalm is Psalm 37. Now, most people have never heard of using Psalm 37 for debt breakthrough. They know Psalm 23 about the shepherd. They know Psalm 91 about protection, but Psalm 37, it's not commonly taught as a financial psalm. But it should be because this psalm, written by King David in his later years, contains specific promises about debt, provision, and restoration that are unlike anything else in Scripture. David wrote this psalm after decades of observing life. He'd been poor and he'd been rich. He'd been hunted, and he'd been king. He'd struggled, and he'd prospered. And in his old age, he wrote down what he'd learned about God's faithfulness to the righteous, especially regarding finances. The entire psalm is about a specific problem. Why do the wicked prosper while the righteous struggle? Why do bad people have wealth while good people have debt? It's the question everyone asks when they're drowning financially. God, I'm trying to do right. Why am I broke while people who don't even serve you are thriving? And David's answer throughout this psalm is, wait, trust. The wicked won't last, but the righteous will inherit. And then he gives specific promises about provision and debt that change everything. Let me show you the specific verses that make this psalm the key to breaking debt bondage. Verse 21 says, the wicked borrows and does not repay, but the righteous shows mercy and gives. Stop right there. This verse establishes the spiritual distinction. The wicked are characterized by borrowing and not repaying. The righteous are characterized by mercy and giving. When you're in debt, you're stuck in the first category, not because you're wicked, but because your circumstances have you borrowing and struggling to repay. But this verse is showing you your destiny, your future. The righteous don't stay borrowers. They become givers. Reading this verse for 3 days begins shifting your identity. You're not permanently a debtor. You're temporarily in debt. But your identity is as one of the righteous who gives, not one who perpetually borrows. Verse 25 is David's personal testimony. I have been young and now am old. Yet I have not seen the righteous forsaken, nor his descendants begging bread. This is powerful. David is saying, I've lived a long life. I've seen everything, and I've never, not once, seen God completely abandon a righteous person to poverty. I've never seen their children begging in the streets. When you're drowning in debt, it feels like you've been forsaken, like God has forgotten you, like you're going to end up on the street. But David, after 80 years of observation, says, I've never seen that happen to the righteous. This is a promise you claim over your situation. God hasn't forsaken you. Your children won't beg. Provision is coming. Verse 26 continues, He is ever merciful and lends, and his descendants are blessed. Here's the reversal. The righteous person doesn't stay a borrower. They become a lender. They move from debt to provision, from bondage to blessing, from owing to lending. This is what you're declaring over yourself when you read this psalm. My future is not determined by my current debt. I'm moving from borrower to blessed, from debtor to lender. Verse 34 says, Wait on the Lord and keep his way, and he shall exalt you to inherit the land. Wait, that's the instruction, not panic, not despair. Wait, trust, stay faithful, and the promise, he shall exalt you to inherit the land. In biblical language, inheriting the land means receiving provision and abundance. It means getting what was promised. It means moving from wandering in debt to possessing abundance. These verses, these promises, when read with faith for 3 consecutive days, break the spiritual bondage of debt. They shift your identity. They establish your future. They call forth provision. But why 3 days specifically? Why not read it once? Why not read it for a week or a month? Because 3 days is the biblical pattern of transformation. Let me show you this pattern throughout Scripture. Jonah was in the belly of the fish for 3 days. Then he was delivered and went on to fulfill his purpose. Jesus was in the tomb for 3 days, then resurrection, then victory over death. Esther fasted for 3 days before approaching the king, then breakthrough, then salvation for her people. Israel was told to take a 3 days journey into the wilderness to worship in freedom. 3 days to move from bondage to liberation. Over and over, 3 days represents the period between crisis and deliverance, between bondage and breakthrough, between death and resurrection. 3 days is the biblical time frame for transformation. So when you read Psalm 37 for 3 days, you're entering into this pattern. Day 1, you break agreement with debt's power over you. Day 2, you establish your new identity as blessed, not bound. Day 3, you complete the spiritual cycle of transformation. After 3 days, something shifts in the spiritual realm. The chains break, not slowly over months. Suddenly in a moment the spiritual bondage shatters. Now you might ask, why not just read it once if God is all-powerful? Because reading once is acknowledgement. Reading for 3 days is declaration. Reading for 3 days shows intentionality, faith, persistence. It's covenant action. You're doing your part for 3 days. You're showing God you're serious. You're demonstrating faith through committed action, and God honors the completion of the 3-day cycle, but you must read it correctly. The way you read it matters tremendously. Let me give you the specific instructions, because if you miss these, you'll read the words without accessing the power. First, timing. You must read Psalm 37 at the same time each day for 3 consecutive days. Morning is ideal because it sets the tone for your entire day. But any time works as long as it's consistent. The key is consistency. Same time, 3 days in a row. If you skip a day, you must start the 3 days over. This isn't a punishment, it's about completing the cycle. 3 consecutive days creates the spiritual pattern. Second, posture. Read it aloud, not silently in your head. Out loud. Words spoken have power in the physical realm. When words move from thought to speech, they enter the atmosphere. They create vibration. They activate spiritual law. Stand if possible. Standing is a posture of authority, not begging from the ground. Standing as a child of God who has a right to these promises. If you must sit, sit upright with dignity, not slouched, not defeated, but with the posture of someone claiming their inheritance. Third, manner. Read it slowly, not rushed, not mechanically checking off a task. Let each verse sink in. Pause after verses that speak to your specific situation. Let them penetrate your heart and mind. Don't just recite, receive. This isn't ritual. This is relationship. You're not performing a religious duty. You're connecting with divine promises. Fourth, heart attitude. This is the most critical element. Read with faith, not desperation. Read as declaration, not petition. You're not begging God to please. Please help you with your debt. You're not groveling. You're not pleading from a place of worthlessness. You're aligning with what God has already promised. You're claiming what belongs to you as a child of God. You're declaring that these promises apply to your life. Read as someone claiming their inheritance, not as a beggar hoping for scraps. There's a huge difference in the spiritual realm between begging and declaring. Now let me tell you what happens during the 3 days, because understanding this will help you persist even when you don't feel anything changing immediately. Day 1, spiritual breaking begins. You might not feel different immediately in the natural realm. Your debt is still there. The bills are still there. The anxiety might still be there, but something begins shifting in the spiritual realm that you can't see yet. The agreement with debt's power starts breaking. For so long, debt has had authority over you. It's dictated your decisions. It's controlled your peace. It's dominated your thoughts. But on day 1, when you read this psalm with faith, that authority begins breaking. Your consciousness begins changing. You start seeing yourself differently. You start seeing possibility where you only saw impossibility. Day 2, identity shifts. By the second day of reading this psalm, declaring these promises, something shifts in how you see yourself. You're not just a person drowning in debt anymore. You're a child of God who is temporarily in debt, but moving toward blessing. The righteous shows mercy and gives. That's you, not someday. Now you're one of the righteous. This is your identity. The shame attached to debt begins lifting. That crushing feeling of failure, of embarrassment, of being less than, it starts loosening. Not because the debt is gone yet in the natural, but because your identity is shifting in your spirit. Confidence starts returning. You begin to believe that breakthrough is actually possible, that you won't be in debt forever, that there is a way out. Day 3, completion and release. By the 3rd day, something completes in the spiritual realm. The cycle is finished, the pattern is established, the declaration is sealed, something releases that was held. It's hard to explain in natural terms because it's a spiritual reality, but people who do this consistently report feeling it, a sense of release, of burden lifting, of chains breaking, even before anything has changed in their bank account. The breakthrough isn't always immediate in the natural realm. You might not wake up on day 4 with all your debt miraculously gone, but the spiritual bondage has broken, and what happens next in the natural realm follows the spiritual release. I've taught this practice to hundreds of people over the years, people drowning in debt, facing bankruptcy, about to lose their homes in seemingly impossible situations. And the pattern of what happens is remarkably consistent. Within days or weeks of completing the 3-day psalm reading, something shifts in the natural realm. You've read Psalm 37 for 3 days. Something has shifted spiritually. The bondage has broken in the realm you cannot see, but spiritual breakthrough must be followed by natural action. There are 3 things you must do during the 3 days, and 3 things you must do immediately after to complete the cycle and manifest the breakthrough. I'm Rabbi Avraham, and what I'm about to show you are the actions that turn spiritual release into physical debt elimination. Before I reveal these, comment these 3 words: I take action and subscribe, because these actions separate people who read beautiful words from people who experience actual debt freedom. Hit that like button. Let me be very clear about something. Faith without works is dead. That's scripture. Spiritual breakthrough is real. Reading Psalm 37 for 3 days does break bondage in the spiritual realm. But if you don't follow it with corresponding action in the natural realm, the breakthrough stays spiritual and never manifests physically. God opens doors, but you must walk through them. God provides opportunities, but you must seize them. God breaks chains, but you must move in your newfound freedom. So, here are the 3 actions you must take during the 3 days while you're reading the psalm. The first action: give something away each day, even from lack. This seems absolutely insane, doesn't it? You're in debt. You're drowning financially. And I'm telling you, to give something away, yes, exactly. Because giving is what breaks scarcity consciousness. Here's what you must understand. Debt doesn't just create a financial problem, it creates a scarcity mindset. When you're in debt, you start thinking from lack. You grip tightly to everything you have. You operate from fear. You make decisions from scarcity, and scarcity consciousness attracts more scarcity. What you hold tightly stays small. What you grip with fear cannot grow. When you're operating from "there's not enough," you block the flow of provision. But when you give, even when it doesn't make logical sense, even when you're in debt, you break that scarcity mindset. You're declaring something powerful. I trust provision more than I fear lack. Giving opens your hands to receive. You cannot receive with clenched fists. When your hands are gripped tightly around what you have, holding on desperately, there's no room for more to come in. But when you open your hands in giving, you create space for receiving. Here's how to practice this during the 3 days. On day 1, give money to someone who needs it more than you, even $5, even $1. The amount doesn't matter. What matters is that you're giving money while you're in debt. This is prophetic action. You're acting as if provision is flowing even though your current circumstance says it's not. You're declaring through action that you're not controlled by debt. On day 2, give food, time, or help to someone. Buy groceries for someone. Spend an hour helping someone who needs assistance. Give from what you have, not from surplus. On day 3, give something of value you've been holding on to. Maybe something you could sell, but you give it instead. Maybe time you were protecting. Maybe expertise you usually charge for. Don't give expecting return. Don't give so people will see how generous you are. Give as worship. Give as declaration. Give as breaking of bondage. And watch what happens in your spirit. When you give while in debt, something shifts inside you. Fear loosens. Trust increases. You prove to yourself that giving doesn't destroy you. That provision continues even when you release what you have. The second action, during the 3 days, speak debts and out loud daily. After you finish reading Psalm 37 each day, you must make a declaration. Words have creative power. In Genesis, God spoke the world into existence. Words create reality. You've just read God's promises about the righteous not being forsaken, about moving from borrower to giver, about inheriting the land. Now you speak those promises over your specific situation. Here's what you say in your own words, but including these elements. My debt is ending, not someday, now. The spiritual bondage is broken. Provision is flowing toward me. Opportunities are opening. Resources are coming. This debt will be resolved. I am moving from borrower to blessed. Speak this out loud immediately after reading the psalm. Speak it with conviction, not desperation. You're not begging. You're declaring what's true in the spiritual realm. You're calling things that are not as though they are. This is how faith operates. Use your own words if mine don't resonate, but include a declaration of ending, a time frame, and a statement of reversal from borrower to blessed. Speak as if it's already done in the spiritual realm. Because after 3 days of reading Psalm 37, it is the spiritual chains are broken. Now you're declaring that physical manifestation is following spiritual reality. The third action during the 3 days, write down every debt and pray over the list. You're bringing specific debts before God, not general God, help me with money prayers. Specific debts, specific amounts, specific creditors, because specific prayers get specific breakthrough. On day 1, write a complete list. Every debt, the credit cards with their balances, the medical bills, the personal loans, the mortgage or rent Rs, everything. Write the creditor's name and the amount owed. This is hard. Seeing it all written down is confronting, but debt feels overwhelming when it's vague and formless in your mind. Writing makes it concrete, visible, confrontable. On day 2, hold that list in your hands while you read Psalm 37, then pray, Lord, I bring these specific debts to you. I cannot resolve them alone. I've tried, I've struggled, I need your intervention. I trust you to provide the way out, transfer the burden. You've been carrying this alone. Now you're partnering with God to resolve it. You're doing your part, reading the psalm, declaring, acting in faith. God does his part, opening doors, providing opportunities, orchestrating breakthrough. On day 3, declare over each debt specifically. This debt to this creditor is ending. Provision is coming for this specific amount. By faith, I release this burden to God and receive wisdom for how to resolve it. Go through every item on your list. Don't rush. Speak over each one. This is you exercising dominion over your situation instead of letting it dominate you. Now, after you complete the 3 days, after you've read Psalm 37 3 times, given 3 times, declared 3 times, prayed over your list, there are 3 more actions you must take immediately. The first action after completing the 3 days. Take 1 practical step toward debt reduction within 24 to 48 hours. Spiritual breakthrough must be followed by practical action. Faith without works is dead. God opens doors, but you must walk through them. The breakthrough creates opportunity. You must seize it. Within 1 or 2 days of finishing your 3rd reading, take a concrete, practical step. Contact your largest creditor to negotiate a payment plan or settlement. Many creditors will settle for less than owed if you show good faith or apply for a debt consolidation program or sell something you've been holding on to that you don't actually need, or take on a side project for extra income, or cut one major unnecessary expense from your budget. Whatever step feels right, take it quickly. Don't wait weeks thinking about it. Move, because movement creates momentum, and momentum attracts more momentum. Action demonstrates faith. When you move in the natural realm after spiritual breakthrough, you're showing God and yourself that you believe something has changed, and that belief creates more change. The second action after the 3 days, create a debt elimination timeline. Now that spiritual bondage is broken, create a practical plan. Faith and planning aren't opposed. They work together. A timeline gives your mind a roadmap. It turns vague hope into specific expectation. Write down each debt with a target payoff date. Be ambitious but realistic. Look at your income. Look at what you can cut from expenses. Look at potential extra income. Then assign dates. This credit card by this month. This medical bill by this date. This loan by this time. Create monthly milestones. What will be paid off by the end of each month? Post this timeline where you'll see it daily on your bathroom mirror, on your refrigerator, somewhere visible. Because what you focus on grows, what you track improves. And here's what's important. Be flexible to adjust as unexpected provision comes, because it will. That's what happens after breaking spiritual bondage. Money shows up from places you didn't expect, so when it does, adjust your timeline, pay things off faster. The third action, after the 3 days, begin daily gratitude for provision. Thanksgiving is the language of receiving. Gratitude positions you to receive more.